First principle, or one of the common principles, is just having natural light, which we don't quite have today. So if you're in a room with natural light right now, the research suggests you would be more attentive to my presentation, and does show that, unfortunately, I have some issues with slide presentation today. So it's been associated in a number of studies with better health, so reduced numbers of headaches, reduced SAD syndrome, reduced eye strain, really common one. From the 1920s onwards, there's been studies showing how that actually leads to better work productivity. The first study was in the 1920s with silk weavers. So we know having access to natural light has a whole range of benefits. In the school area, better school attendance and achievement in school environments, classroom environments with better natural light. And multiple studies now showing if you have a medical procedure and you're in a hospital room, say you've got two patients, same procedure, one's in a hospital room without natural light or a nature view, one's in one which does have those things, the one with natural light and the nature view will heal faster. And it's a surprisingly strong connection when you look at it in the health literature. But we do have a challenge. Natural light is not actually possible in many situations that people end up in, particularly workplace environments where you've got a large office building, you've got large interior areas. So it's absolutely important to design for, but we need to think what else have we got in the toolbox as well for those situations where it's not possible. Nature views. There's pretty good evidence on this. Nature views have been demonstrated in the scientific literature to be associated with improved mood and higher well-being. Less often with improved physical health. We tend to feel happier and better. It has been associated with increased workplace productivity. There's actually a couple of studies though that show about the same workplace productivity but people feeling happier at work. So there's a bit of mixed evidence there. There's definitely evidence on better school attendance and achievement, better healing from medical procedures. So being able to see nature helps. One of the things we don't have a lot of good evidence on though is what constitutes adequate nature view. What counts as a nature view? One plant on a windowsill is not enough. But if you're in a city, if you can overlook a small garden outside, is that enough? What's actually enough to make a difference? We actually have almost no hard scientific data on. And that's something which we really need to address in the academic world to provide the evidence that's needed to inform design. So I think we've got a lot more to do on that front. And again, nature views aren't always possible in every situation. So what can we do in those situations? Something that's not discussed, I think, often enough is providing nature images. And there's surprisingly good evidence that having a picture of a natural environment hanging on a wall actually does provide biophilic benefits. So bear in mind that that's one, there's not as much evidence, but what there is pretty compelling. When they've done studies comparing people in offices or in homes with images of nature on the wall, the ones with the nature images tend to have better well-being, improved well-being in healthcare settings in particular. They've done a lot more research in the healthcare settings on this, and positive perceptions of the workplace. But again, we need to know which nature images are more and less effective. One of the issues here is what people view as being natural or a nature image is culturally dependent in some ways. So what we view as a nature image in Australia is sometimes viewed as a threatening picture of an environment in other cultures, especially when we're talking about eucalypt forests that can look a bit messy, or a desert scene or things like that. So again, we need quite a lot more work on how do we actually intersect between people's cultural expectations of what's a nice nature image and putting an image on the wall that can provoke improved well-being or improved work satisfaction. Plants. When you think biophilic design, who immediately thinks plants as their first go-to? Actually, you're probably not the audience where this would be the first thing, but when it's a general audience I'm talking to, they all think plants and almost nothing else. Interestingly, the evidence on plants, there's tons of it out there, but it is, because there's been a reasonable amount of research done, it's nice because it actually highlights it's not just bung a plant in the office and off you go, which you would all know. It's about, do you have enough plants? Do you have the right type of plants? Do you have the right type of soil feeding those plants? Do you have mould spores building up on that soil? Do you have someone who'll take care of those plants? Because dead plants are not associated with a biophilic benefit. And we need to bear that in mind. And we have heard a lot from people saying they get a lot of pressure to just put in plastic plants. And I've had people asking me, if I do plastic plants, does it give a biophilic benefit? I actually don't know the answer to that. There has been one study done which suggested that there is actually a mild benefit of artificial green plants, but of course there's a lot of concerns about VOCs, about all the other things associated with the whole idea of plastic plants. So in terms of the evidence, you can have positive or negative impacts on air quality with plants depending on what you use and how you use it. So we often hear the positives about improved air quality. Absolutely, that's possible, but we need to bear in mind that if you do plants wrong, you can have some negative impacts as well. And that's particularly through the soil issue. There is certainly evidence of people having improved mood around plants, but it's very context dependent and depends partly how much you like plants. Not everyone actually does. So in general, moderate evidence that there is improved wellbeing, better when you integrate it with other biophilic design elements. So part of it's how well we do it, and that's the trick really, isn't it? So that's where other people will be far more interesting than me. And one plant really isn't enough. That's one thing we do know. That plant on the windowsill is lovely, but it's not enough to make a noticeable or measurable change in your workplace productivity.